I'm out the button. We're live, okay. Monday morning.
I know, this is different, isn't it?
Monday
Usually
morning.
we're a Wednesday podcast.
Afternoon.
A small miracle because last week Chris spilled coffee all over our mixing desk. Surprisingly, we're not just hanging about over a phone. We actually have a proper mixing desk.
It went all over it.
Turns
a
out it's
whole
waterproof.
cup.
So,
Turns out it's waterproof. Still a bit sticky.
yeah,
Did that sugar have? No, sorry. Did that coffee have a sugar in it?
Of course.
It did.
Yeah.
See, because that's what sometimes causes it to
Yeah, but
go bad, didn't it? 'Cause of sugar.
there was extensive wet cloth action
Cleaning.
post spillage.
yeah.
We'll see. Well, because maybe when we play it back, they will all sound like robots.
Yeah, we'll see. But at the moment,
Smelling slightly of coffee.
everything's going on as it should do, which is good.
Good.
Result.
Right.
Good.
So Monday morning jokes, please. Thank you.
I've got a good one.
Go.
Okay, you can do yours first. You do yours first.
My wife poured glue all over my rifle collection at the weekend. I mean, she's denying it, but I'm sticking to my guns.
I think that's rubbish. Mine is much better. Can we do mine too?
Yeah, go.
Why do cannibals not eat clowns?
We don't know, Julie.
Because they taste funny.
Right.
See,
Right.
That's why people come to this podcast. Yeah.
It's all downhill from here.
Welcome to the Good Roundup. Good. We're a brand consultancy based in the UK, but we work pretty much anywhere that people will pay us because we're good that way. And we get together. Myself, I am Stuart Steele. Hello. I am joined by Chris Lumsden.
Hi, I'm Chris Lumsden. I'm a founding partner at Good Brand Consultants.
And Julie Murdoch.
Hello.
Hello. And today we are going to be talking, and I'm not going to lie, right? I've not said this to you yet, Chris, but when you first talked about this as a blog post, I went,
What? In what way?
I went, oh well. And I was listening to the sound of you scraping underneath the barrel.
I think this is quality content.
I join you today. I sit corrected, and it was actually very interesting content. However, when you said to me, "I'm going to talk about tips about how to run a brand workshop," I went, "Well, that's some nighttime reading right there." But I have to say, it's very good. But what was the reason? What was the reason for writing?
Well, if it had been a normal one, I wouldn't have done it. But there were circumstances contrived around the brand workshop that made me have to think quite hard about the brand workshop and how it was going to work. So we were. How long do we? I mean, you do these things more than me now, Stuart. But how long do we normally take for these things?
Usually
Try and
half
get
a day,
out
isn't
of
it?
Half a day to be
It can-
comfortable.
Yes.
Yeah.
You'd want half a day, and then it can stretch out more, depending.
Yeah. We had an hour. It started at half a day, and then the senior leadership team of this business said, "There's other business. Of course, there's other business for them to do, you know." And we had an hour. So rather than lose the slot because it would probably never come around again, it was all in the diaries. We thought, how do we take all the weight out of it and keep the good stuff?
And generally, we say brand workshop as a term, but generally, what do we mean by brand workshop? When this is at the very start of the process where we're trying to make sure that somebody's coming to us going, look, our brand needs tightened up and looked at, and so we'll kick off with a brand workshop, which is basically getting the key players in the organisation together to try and make sure, well, to see if there's any tension in the room, essentially, to kind of go, well, look, are we all aligned around where the business is and where it's going?
Once you cut away all the waffle, it's about just ensuring everyone's on the same page with regard to the brand and the elements of the brand or the proposed elements or whatever it is. You know, it's about. In a way, I suppose it's a political exercise as much as a brand one, right?
Well, yeah, but it's a bit of for us, it's an opportunity to do a kind of fact-finding exercise, isn't it, with all of those, which is one of your points, so I won't jump ahead to it, but with, if planned correctly, you have the right people in the room and all key stakeholders together, so we have the opportunity to ask all the intelligently naive questions early in the process, don't we?
So I kind of thought, I mean, it was nice, it was quite liberating, as I say in the piece, to get rid of all that usual bullshit and cut straight to the most valuable stuff. And I thought about it afterwards, and I have condensed it down to 7 points. Some of them more important than others. But do you want me to crash straight into them?
Get on with it.
Right. So, point number one, in order to do this, to condense it to an hour, is about having the right people in the rooms. Jules has just said it. So the right heads, both from the client and the agency point of view. And I think this is the most important one. So if you've got senior people in the room, that's fine. You can cut corners. If you don't, you can't. We were lucky enough to have all the senior decision makers in the room, and so they could cut to the chase. That worked, and we had people from our side who'd done this one or two times as well, so we knew how it was going to go. So I think we have to acknowledge the fact that first up, right heads from the right team.
And I think your point there about the right heads from both sides is an important point, because I think it's really easy in these workshops where it's not a one-on-one situation. You've got a number of people in the room, some generally more opinionated than others, but it's quite easy to go down a rabbit hole or go down a number of rabbit holes. So the ability and experience of somebody from an agency side who's able to kind of bring it back to the kind of
keep it on course
and course correct as needed.
It's important, really important. Yeah, especially when you've only got, it was 45 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
Second point was...
before we jump on to the second point.
Sorry.
It's interesting about the right the right client heads, because sometimes what happens is we're going to get a number of people in just so that they feel part of the process. And I think that kind of can be dangerous at that very start kickoff. I think there's other places where people can get into the process a little bit deeper, because you can say, right, we're going to bring in our mid-management level.
Yeah.
And what happens is you've got senior management, C-suite people, and then you've got sometimes other people brought in just to be part of the process. Just to
and that I think you're right, and that we were lucky not to have that. But I think that's when the workshop becomes a political tool as well. Because you're letting people have their say. We had all the senior people who knew what they wanted, so it was clearer.
I think
and easier.
But that does vary by client, doesn't it? I think, because thinking about, and I'm going way back to when we did it was a cancer charity, and it was a new charity that was being created on the back of two organisations merging. Because I think sometimes, that wasn't just about senior leadership. It wasn't about C-suite. The inclusive nature of what they were trying to create as a brand had to represent, multiple kind of parts of that organisation. So we had radiographers, we had somebody from the nursing staff, we did have the leaders of the two charities, and there was a number, I think there was about 10 people involved in it, but massively valuable to have. And I think that's the thing, is about making the decision or making the right call in terms of, is it a senior leadership forum, or actually is it an exercise, part of which is about involving people from across the broader organisation? And that will vary depending
100%.
on what you need out.
Getting them on the bus and facing the right direction is part of the tool. So yes, we were lucky in this circumstance. We didn't need to do that, and that cut a lot of time out of it, which was good. So secondly, I think, and almost as importantly, is we sent the participants what we call pre-reads to say, this is what we're going to be talking about. So they could get their heads in the right place. They're primed and ready to talk. Not necessarily coming with pre-prepared answers, but they knew where we were going. And I think it's just a proper practice to get into anyway. I'd say it was professional courtesy rather than anything else, but it helps facilitate and speed up the sessions. So I don't believe people should be coming into these things cold, because otherwise they're nervous and you have to spend so much time orientating about what we're doing.
I think it's probably a mistake we've made, in the past. You forget that, or it's easy to forget that the people who are attending these workshops aren't doing this every day, week, month, even year, and maybe once in their life if they're really unlucky, or lucky, I should say. But yeah, I think that sort of heads in right space is important.
Happy with that, Stuart?
Oh, yeah, no.
Good. Number 3, this is where I guess most of the cutting happened. I'm calling it clarity and focus of the discussion areas. So once I kind of boiled it down to the very essence, there were really only 4 areas that mattered to us that were really important. The first one was, what was the internal perspective? So it's about understanding how aligned the team is on the brand, its characteristics, the product offering, and any associated challenges. So that, internal perspective, again, within the 4 is probably disproportionately the most important aspect. Secondly, who is the customer? Who are you serving? And how is, your product or service relevant to them? Thirdly, where is the competition? What is it? What are the dynamics that are happening in a marketplace? Who else is playing and how are they positioned? And then fourthly, it was asking them about brands that they may aspire to or that they look at and go, it would be nice to have a bit of that. You know, and it's nice to take them out of the here and now and look at, you know, who's doing certain things well or who behaves characteristics.
And that's not necessarily brands in their space, is
Correct.
it? That's kind of just across the board.
But these 4 things were just, you know, the essence of what we needed. And I think there is a bit of a lesson in simplicity for us in there that it didn't feel we'd lost anything. But again, it goes back to probably the point.
I mean, I think you're lucky because in the time that you were given, what you don't have is the opportunity to challenge. So sometimes I think that's where, you know, because what you're trying to find sometimes in the room is a tension between, well, we think it's X, or people say it's Y, and go, well, you can't both be right, or can you both be right? But that makes the challenge harder. So, I mean, the fact that you had a team that were all on the same page obviously made life harder. But I think sometimes what's nice...
it made it easier.
Sorry. I'm stupid. But I think what's going to be good is just that fact that sometimes you might want to go in and say, well, that's interesting, because when we're looking at the competition, they're hitting that customer. So are they really the competition?
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, we were lucky there that because if there had been there would have been rabbit holes we would have gone down. Yeah. We would have spilled over.
Yeah, and you touched on it earlier. You know, the fact that from that, kind of, what is the internal perspective and how aligned are the internal team? How clear are you, and how clearly defined are your customer groups? That was very, you know, the client in this case had done a lot of work to kind of to make sure that was clearly defined coming into that workshop, wasn't it? So it wasn't like you were trying to wrestle people into the same.
Your 45 minutes would have ended if it split up between 3.2 and 3.3. You know what I mean? That would have been there. You're lucky. Yes. But I mean, and sometimes that's where some of the interesting stuff is in a brand workshop, because it's not just about us sitting there taking notes. Sometimes, you know, it is about, as Julie says, asking some daft questions, bringing stupid as a service in and going, why are you doing that? Why is it that customer?
But it's also... Sorry, Jules.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's... One of the bits of feedback we've had in the past is that these exercises can be quite therapeutic from a client point of view, because often when you're talking about bringing people together from representative parts of the organisation, it may be the first time they've sat together and talked about some of these things. So it's quite I think creating, or in some instances allowing some space and room for that discussion to be quite organic it can be a really valuable thing for the client. So again, it comes back to what are the key outcomes and thinking about the needs of that client and aligning that with the time frame.
Yeah, and we were, I guess I'd say, lucky that we weren't on a diplomatic mission that day. We were in and out, you know.
Yep.
Sniper
style. Sniper style.
So the fourth aspect or thing I've pinpointed is, I've said, plain language speeds everything up. And I think this is there's a lesson for all us branders and marketers and stuff in here, which is, when you don't have time to waste, you don't need to flower things up, which we're bad at. So you cut straight to the chase and ask the questions. And one of the examples I've given is, like, you know, by asking for a set of defining brand characteristics, it's relatively easy for people to get their head around what that means, and they can bring stuff along to the meeting. But if we say, which I admit I have done in the past, we wanted to explore the stretch between intrinsic and extrinsic brand attributes.
Wanker.
Yep. Then you have to spend 20 minutes explaining what that means. And I think, you know, in the past I've done that. You almost use that language as a shield, you know.
Yeah.
And that's maybe, you know, part of the next point I was going to make. But it's just, the lesson here is, you know, it's part of our values. It's the simplicity aspect.
Simple,
just keep it simple.
I think also as part of that plain language, and again, if you had the time, but I'm kind of very much looking to define things, because I think depending on the size of the group, if you get a group of people in coming in and going, we're going to talk about your brand today, there's a whole lot of people with slightly different views about what that brand is. So we can, and we're still tightening that up every meeting we're doing, is going, when we are talking about brand, this is what we mean.
Yeah, and people that are not, you know, fluent in brand bullshit,
you know, just so that we know, you know, so it's not about, so that a bunch of people going, I don't quite know why I'm here for a meeting about the logo.
Correct.
Yeah, we're not here to talk. We're not here to decide whether it's going to be red or blue. We're talking.
I think it should be blue.
Yeah. Well, you've always said that. To be fair.
Well, to be fair, you have come in full blue outfits before, so you're always going to say that.
Blue is the colour, isn't it? Yeah.
So I think if if you had the time, I think it's just explain that, going like, when we're talking about brand, this is what we're talking about. We're talking about the business and how it is perceived and how it goes out to the world. And I think those kind of definitions are helpful, and it ties back to your pre-reads as well. It kind of, you can tie all that back, but the more you can just reinforce definitions with people who might not understand.
Well, they don't live in this.
Yeah, they're all on
world,
a different
do
page.
they?
Same
Yeah.
way that I don't know what a radiologist does. If I
They
was on a conference,
fix radios.
is that what they do?
Yeah.
You're amazing.
Number 5 is, and we've touched on this, but I think it's a key point, which is drive it and keep the discussion focused. And Jules, you mentioned that, and Stuart, I've seen you do this really well recently, in one of the ones we had here, which is things, and you mentioned it, things do drift off course, and you can end up going down rabbit hole and exploring things that you maybe want to explore later, but you're getting into it, bleeds into it, especially early in the conversation. But I think the thing is, with experience, it's important, to accept that your job is to interrupt and say, look, that's great, we're going to get there, but can we stay here just now and keep that discussion focused? And it can be quite daunting, I guess, from an agency perspective when you're dealing with very senior people at organizations. But I think that's, again, a thing about experience and a thing about professionalism and credibility. You're there to drive that, and especially when you've only got 45 minutes to wring out the value.
Yeah.
And part of the role of the pre-read as well, you kind of, that's just about sort of managing expectations in terms of what we're going to talk about.
They need to be corralled and managed through the process and in the right way. So I think, especially when you don't have a lot of time, you got to keep it focused.
Keep it on track.
Yeah, and I think it is that thing where you've also got to curb your own curiosity, because it is. I mean, the chat is interesting, and you feel that you're getting deeper into the business and you're learning things, and also you're learning things about the people who are raising the points. And given the fact that ours is, we're working with people all the time, we're going, this is interesting because that kind of person's that person, that'll be useful to know later. That's not the point of the meeting.
No, you're right.
But it is very interesting. So you've also got to just check yourself and go, am I getting too interested in this? And if you are, then you kind of go, well, am I?
And if you've got a day, then you can explore that.
Yeah, but even I mean, it's amazing even within a day how quickly a rabbit hole can go. Because as Julie said earlier on, sometimes these people have not been in a room together, and depending on the group of people, sometimes it's debates between the C-suite, and then there's other people feeling awkward because that's not maybe just I've had that before, and it's kind of going, right, okay, this is.
Or it can become a religious debate about it.
Yeah,
and it's pointless. Yeah.
And then I say, this is really interesting, which is my...
Time to move on.
Let's go. Move on.
Number 6, you'll be glad to know we're only 2 from home now. Number 6.
It's going to be a quick one.
Keep the PowerPoint deck short. And again, the time thing is great because I've seen these run to hundreds of slides. But when you need to be quick, you need to think more about the conversation than the presentation. And we agencies are terrible at creating masterpiece presentation decks. We've talked about that before. And often they felt they're needed as a bit of a crutch. But there is a real benefit and a discipline in keeping it short and sharp. And moving through. So 10 slides, there's maybe, they're title slides to facilitate discussion or open discussion, but just keep pushing.
And that's all it really is in this case, isn't it? It shouldn't even really be called a presentation. It's not.
Yeah.
it's just a deck to it's almost an agenda. It's a structure.
Discussion guide.
Yeah, discussion guide rather than a presentation.
And I think where this hits home is when you try and do a brand workshop on Teams. Because then basically
there's a topic.
There is a topic. But then basically what you've got is a big screen with a presentation on it. Where actually you're definitely trying to get people, and also, I mean, I don't like it because I can't see people. Because trying to do it on Teams is a brand workshop on Teams is difficult because you're looking for what's not being said as much as what is being said. You're looking at body language and people feeling uncomfortable, people then shifting away to try and go right.
It's a great point. I think because obviously it goes without saying mine was in person, but you're right. If you were doing this on Teams, you couldn't do it that quickly.
We never used to use presentation decks when we did brand workshops. We just, it was a group of people in a room with a flip chart.
Sometimes it's good to bring their collective focus to one thing or one question. But again, it should be reflected in the pre-read as well. If you've done that well, it can be used as a guide. And then finally, I think, linked to a thing that you've just said, Stuart, is, watch the clock and move on when you know you've got enough. So it's this flogging of dead horses. You've got to keep track of time. And sometimes the value comes early and quickly in the collective discussion. And your job is to go, we've got that. That's done. we don't need to talk about it anymore, you know.
I think that partly comes down to an experience and confidence thing as well, doesn't it? To just be like, yeah, we know what we needed out of that. We've got it. Let's move on.
Avoid the discursive cul-de-sacs.
And I think the
You like that
you
expression,
I
don't
do.
you?
I like saying it.
I like saying it.
Discursive.
Discursive
cul-de-sac.
I mean, I think we've had. I think when we've tried to, in some circumstance, tried to lay out what the day is going to look like, we've had discussion when shall we bring that up now because that might be a challenge for them. Do we wait till the end of the day because they might then have come to their own conclusion? Those are the bits which are kind of. That's the layout of the day is always quite interesting for me because then you've kind of got to make sure the clock, are they going to be quicker in the morning and late and more thoughtful in the afternoon, you know, all that
especially
kind of
after
stuff.
lunch.
Yeah, after a wee bit of lunch.
Get a bit tired after lunch.
Yeah, especially when I'm on my 400 slide of logos that I like.
Yes,
you know?
here's things I like.
So,
you know, to wrap up, I think we are. I'm sure we're no different to any other industry that makes things more complicated when we can, but it's just that exercise was quite refreshing and reinforced to me that when you know constraints, the benefit of constraints, what it does is it focuses the mind. So yeah, 7 points.
One of the things, as I say, on an article that I thought I was going to never read because
I read it and said I thought it was decent.
Yeah.
You damned it with faint praise.
No, I think the other thing that I think was kind of that it highlighted to me is that how clients can't do this themselves. There's always the tendency.
So what's your phrase?
You can't participate and facilitate in this because you definitely need some outside perspective because it's difficult sometimes for internal people to rush it along. It's difficult.
I think that's
a
great point that I didn't make and I should have done. You're absolutely right. There is sometimes a tendency for clients to think we can do this ourselves.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying you can't, but it's just really difficult. We can't be objective about our own business.
No. So I mean, I think that's it's always good to kind of know this is what you're getting yourself into, and I think we will share this article with clients that we're going to go into, what to expect from a brand workshop. I think the one thing that I wouldn't be saying this is a do it yourself guide. I would say you definitely need somebody who doesn't know the people in the room.
And if you don't know anyone,
give
us a call because we know some people.
But it is a little bit of it becomes a bit of a false economy, doesn't it? Yeah. If you kind of generally start, clients can at times start out with the kind of trying to maybe save some money or do something quicker, but ultimately in terms of their own time it will take longer and cost more. So,
and I can tell the chief exec to be quiet in a nice way, in a respectful way.
How would you do that?
Be quiet.
Right.
And no, it would be
very kindly. I think we've got enough now. That's really interesting. Let's park that and we'll come back to it later.
Yeah. Could you write that down? But I think it's more difficult for people internally to do that because that person's in charge of their pay rise or
it's the Hippo effect, isn't it?
And you're just sitting there and you're just waiting for the person to maybe finish soon and everything else. Where I can kind of go, I'm going to wait for the best, and I'm going to go. That's really interesting. Could you just stick a pin in it and move on to the next point? So it was a. So
shall we stick a pin in this?
Oh, look at that!
That's what you call.
That's that. You're the Gary Lineker of whatever this is.
Yep, there's a
Gary Lineker of the brand world.
That's exactly who he is. That's
Happy days.
Right.
I'm not doing it in my undercrackers.
Yes, you are.
Not if Leicester win the title.
All right. Well,
or something. Right.
Okay.
I think we're done.
Anyway, I think we're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you. Bye.